All right, I am live here with Steve Saporito. He is an extraordinary marketer and a consultant to photography businesses, and he builds seven-figure businesses all over the US, Australia, and all over the world. So thank you so much, Steve. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So
totally excited. Let's get going. It's 1 a.m. here, so hopefully I can answer some questions.
Yeah. And by the way, I want to let people know the way I found you was I saw you speaking on stage at PPA, and I went to a ton of different talks and a bunch of different stages sponsored by everyone. And when I saw that your name was there, the headline was absolutely amazing. I was absolutely blown away. And I have to let the viewers know, like, I followed you around the expo and I just had to learn everything about you. And thankfully I kept in touch like online, and you agreed to talk to us. So I know I have a lot of questions for you, and specifically, nowadays with, a lot of photographers wanting to get to that level, or a lot of people thinking that level isn't even possible. So before we even get there, like, can you just tell us, like, how'd you even get started in photography? What was your journey to get here, being, such a big role model and consultant for people?
Wow. Okay. Well, I was a chartered accountant and didn't really enjoy the accounting world, working out people's taxes and then giving them a bill at the end of it. Even though you save somebody 20 grand and $20,000 in tax, and they only think about what they have to pay. So I ended up purchasing an existing photography studio in a shopping mall, and I loved photography at the time and hired photographers, hired makeup artists, and I grew that business into 3 more stores. So over the course of 15 years, it took me 10 years to actually make money. It took me 10 years to physically work out what was going on and how to make money. And then I opened up a second studio, and then I opened up a third overflow studio because my first one was booked out, fully booked for 2 months, sometimes 3 months ahead. So I needed somewhere else to send all these extra people that we couldn't fit in. And it was only meant to be running 2 days a week, but it probably ran 4 days a week most times, and pretty much did 80% of the income of my top store. So that's, my main store was doing about $130,000 a month every month when I sold it. And then that secondary store was doing between $60,000 and $80,000 a month. And my other store, which was on the other side of town, stupid move because there was a lot of traveling, was trading at about 90. They did about 90,000 a month, rarely cracked 100, which was disappointing. But anyway, at the time I didn't know any better. I thought that was pretty bad.
So I guess I'd be curious, like, what made you specifically pick photography out of everything you could have done, and knowing all these other businesses and how much money they made, what would make somebody in the right mind choose photography?
Well, I loved it. I love the concept of it. And in putting my accounting hat on, I did a feasibility study for one of my clients, and I'm like, oh, this could be really profitable. Like, I'm looking at the numbers, the margins are good. If the volume's right and the average sales right, then, it should be easy to make money. It wasn't that easy for the first 10 years because there was a lot more to it. There's a lot more psychology. I think because people buy emotionally, I didn't factor that whole emotional part of it in. But once I mastered the psychology behind how to set up a store, what people were attracted to, how to help people value themselves enough to buy photography. I think that's the biggest key to this, is that it didn't matter how great our work was. It didn't matter how great my makeup artists were. It didn't really matter. We improved, but it didn't seem to make a lot of difference to profits or to turnover. But once we started really diving in and helping people find out what mattered to them, and understood the psychology behind why people buy from us, then the business just took off. So I don't know, I just loved it. And it was so far away from accounting, and I hated accounting. I think I wanted something that was polar opposite to what I was doing for 8 or 9 years.
Yeah. So
that university degree went to waste. Well, not really, because I still use it to a degree.
So I guess my question would be, because for a lot of people, that might be a very foreign thought, right? Like buying a photography business. So let's just say somebody right now, and I know that was a while back, but what would be the biggest difference, right? Like what made you want to buy someone else's business instead of starting it from scratch? Was there any benefit to that financially?
There was one up for sale, and the staff were already employed. It was already doing an okay turnover, and I kind of figured, well, you know, my family's been in business their whole lives. I took on accounting as a, you know, distraction for 8 or 9 years, and then, you know, coming back into business, I didn't think it was going to be any different. So buying an existing one seemed easy because all the equipment was there. I kind of figured by the time I set it up, pay for the fit out, pay for the equipment, because back then equipment wasn't as cheap as it is now. We were paying, you know, 30 grand for, you know, a decent camera. And, you know, by the time you add it all up, it was probably easier just to buy one outright. But when you say, you know, it's foreign to a lot of people that, you know, to buy a studio, I've had maybe 5 or 6 of my clients sell their businesses, sell their studios. So I think that if you're building a business that, we should all be building businesses that are sellable. And at the end of it, if you can cash that in for whatever that is, you know, I've had some sell for 700,000, some sell for 200,000. Only one got over $1 million for their business. So it's doable, but you have to be focused on creating a business that's sellable.
So I guess on the other side of that, right? So of course, I agree with you. I think the biggest payday someone can have is basically the day they sell their business. And just out of curiosity, when someone goes to buy a business, and I've been kind of learning a little bit about this, is there's different, let's just say there's different levers people can pull, right? Like they can either pay X amount right now, or they can pay X amount over time. So you can't get the premium pricing with a lump sum up front, which a lot of people think if you're going to buy a business, you got to pull $700,000 out of your bank account, and now you're the owner. Have you seen that? You know, is that something in photography where like owners are willing to like stay on? You know, are you buying over time? You know, how did that work?
Most of them got a cash upfront amount, and they're required to stay usually 6 weeks for a transition. So that's all negotiable. That's all part of the negotiation on the sale. But the owners tend to stay for a handover. And because there's staff as well that are going with the business that are re-employed with the new owners, then the team pretty much knows what to do. As an owner, you almost need to make yourself irrelevant on the floor, and insofar as making the business work. You shoot because you want to shoot, you sell because you want to sell, not because you have to. And, you know, when you're preparing a business for sale, having all of those people in place that can do all of that makes your business a lot more valuable. So most people are looking for a return on their investment, and anywhere between 2 to 3 times. If there's a decent database, if the alliances are set up, and, you know, the marketing is set and proven with a, you know, usually a 5-year track record, then you tend to get the best money after that 5 years. So for no different to any other business.
Yeah, I guess that's right. You know, and even sometimes I get in that trap where I'm trying to be cognizant of like photography is not different than anything else. But what does someone do or is that change if somebody has a studio that's designed around just their brand name? It's just them as a person. Their whole studio is named after them. Does that make it exceptionally hard, or how do they, you know, position themselves? Because someone might come in and say, "Hey, look, I can't take over Joe Schmo studio. I'm not, you know, John Smith." So,
That's a valid point. The people that I train, we address that early on, in that if it is, Steve Saporito photography, then we need to come up with another name. If the plan is to sell it or to build a business that is going to be sellable. So it's a lot harder to sell something and for someone to come in and take over a business that's named after you. So the studios that so far have been sold all have had generic names. So, well, not generic, but not named after that specific person. And it was done intentionally. I think because of my accounting background, you sort of advise people, get all your companies set up, make sure that you've got, somewhere to, so then that way you're not paying the highest amount of tax, and think about whether you are wanting to retire in the next even 10 years, because as we build the business, then it needs to be named something that you could possibly sell if that's something that you want to do. And some people, it's not something they're interested in, but I kind of figure that if you're going to work for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years in something, at the end of it, why not sell it? And, $700,000 to do something else with is good money.
Yeah. And
each business is going to be valued differently.
Yeah. So I guess on that topic of valuations, is there something that through your training or the studios that work with you, something that they're doing that maybe other people might oversee? And to the top of my mind, maybe things like they don't have their books straight, they're not accurately keeping track of things, or they don't have a system or processes. Everything is just kind of ad hoc. So the business wouldn't be transferable to somebody if someone just says, well, how do you get your clients? And, if that person looking to buy it says, or the seller says, well, from my Facebook page, I have a really good word of mouth and people call my personal cell phone, or, how do people start positioning themselves? Is there something that, those studios do differently?
Well, through the training that I do, I've mapped out every system that there is in running a business. So depending upon what course there's workflows. So the workflows are just mapped out, and it's like a tree diagram, and there's step 1, there's step 2, step 3, step 4, and everything's mapped out. So having a studio manual helps raise somebody's confidence in buying a business. So that every single procedure is mapped out and documented. And of course, a solid database that is current, because a lot of people may have a database, but it's not kept fresh, it's not kept current, or they've switched between multiple databases and none of them really have any of the information that are needed, or sometimes they don't have a database at all. So a prospective buyer probably isn't going to be looking at anything that doesn't have a solid database and solid marketing that's in place, those relationships that are in place and documented, and agreements signed between the two parties. So all of that, I think, a lot of the times when I'm coaching people, they don't tend to have marketing that is documented. Their agreements are signed if there is a third party relationship with another business that they're now feeding you clients, and there isn't really a studio manual that documents all the procedures that have to happen. And it's got to be profitable. So nobody's really going to be looking at investing a lot of money if it's not profitable. So making sure that the average sales are up there is really important too, because nobody, if it's profitable, you get a lot more offers.
Yeah. And I'm sure, even with that in mind, having I'm going to sell this at some point, you treat it differently, right? It's almost like you treat it like someone's looking at your books or looking at it from the outside. I'm assuming that probably also makes it easier to start new studios if that person, let's just say, isn't retiring. So is that something they also use, like those manuals, the marketing material, the processes for selling? Is that something you see people are able to just transplant into other cities, or how does someone even go from, most people aren't even able to build one. How does someone know that they're ready for a second studio?
Second studio, well, building your first studio is the primary thing, and a lot of people aren't running it at capacity. They'll come to me and say, I'm thinking of a second studio, but in most cases they haven't maximized the current one, and it's much easier to make a lot more money out of the first one than it is opening the second one. The one thing that I learned when I opened up my second studio was that it made my initial studio dive because my attention was now split between the two. And what I thought I'd be making double the money, that just didn't happen because, both studios sort of, as one came in, the other one dived, and then this one dived with it as well. So I was actually making less money until I figured it out, and then, they both started going up. So really, you're not ready until the systems are in place, and you've got good people trained to basically run it with you. Having the staff in place and the right training in place and documenting all of the systems is really, really important. Understanding the systems. I've got a lot of clients that have moved from one city to the other, and all they've done is implement what they've learned to another city. And it doesn't take long to start a new studio, but while you're running a one in the background, it tends to put it's a lot more work. So you've got to be a lot more prepared. I think you've really got to look at, have I filled all my days? Are there, have I maximized my team, and have I maximized, the time that I have? And what most people don't look at is the average sale. So is the average sale where it should be? Because maybe if all they focused on is increasing their average sale by, $500 or $1,000, that could possibly make them more money than opening that second store.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think yesterday, me and you were talking about somebody that had basically moved from Hawaii to somewhere in Virginia. And I guess that's actually a huge question people normally have, is especially for like military families and people where maybe a spouse has a full-time job somewhere, or family reasons, they move and instantly they just think, all this work I've done, people only know me here, my social media is only here, I'm done, I'm not going to be able to get clients. And they'll get to the new place and it's slow we're just kind of, they're spinning their wheels everywhere. Like how does that work with someone that's working with you? What do you normally advise them to do?
Well, there's two options. When I started meeting all these military families, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. They move every 3 years. They could potentially build a business and sell it, cash in every 3 years. This is like, sounds amazing. Because, when I was opening studios for my clients, within 2 weeks, a month, we had it up and running. And 3 years is enough of a track record to get something for it. It's not going to be, optimal, because 5 years track record is a lot better. But it just means that you can constantly be building. And rather than just closing the door and leaving and having to start again, get a cash payment for whatever the business is worth. And then you've got all that money to then put into the next one and start again. But obviously you're selling that business, you're selling the business name. What I've had a couple of other people do is that they've found a photographer, trained the photographer, trained a salesperson. And because they've set up the relationships with all those different alliances, all those different other businesses, those third parties that are sending them clients, that relationship is with that original person. So they've just kept a photographer, kept the salesperson, and those leads are coming in. They're pretty much already, because of the relationship that they've had, they've pretty much already conditioned to buy because of the third party. And so, the business is running even though they could be in another state, in this case, Virginia.
Yeah, so it's funny. So it's actually a big contrast to think, hey, that's the worst thing that can happen for a photography business, and that's like the best thing that could happen for a photography business.
Yeah.
So as far as moving, like, are the people keeping the same name? Are they Do they have to
Yeah.
completely create a new brand, or how does that work?
Well, in this particular case where she kept the photographers running, then she's kept the same brand and she's kept the same name and she's just operating out of two places. If you're selling, then you have to come up with a new brand, and because you've sold that brand, you've sold the name. And so when you're moving to another state, you just start again. You've cashed in. Just make sure that there's no exclusion clauses that stop you from trading, within, your certain area. But usually when you're moving states, it makes no difference. Those sort of clauses don't tend to affect you. So you just come up with a new name, XYZ Photography, and away you go.
So one thing I always hear from photographers too is like, well, Murdo, like what if someone comes into my studio and then they start siphoning off my clients and they're shooting out of their backyard, or they have access to my email list? Like, how do I safeguard that? What would you say to that? Is that like a real concern?
As in an employee?
Yeah, like an employee, because I understand, especially in a lot of industries, like there's always like a feeling of guardedness, right? Where it's like, well,
Yeah.
if I show this, and what stops this person from going and opening their own studio and beating me at my own game?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a lot of people do have that concern, but usually, the photographer does the photography part of the role and the salesperson does the sales part of the role. Rarely do you have people doing multiple or all the roles, because we all know that there's more to it than just photography. Taking photos, there's more to it than just selling. There's marketing, there's relationship building, there's all the other stuff. So I think the other thing is that if you're giving people consistent work and you're paying them and you're rewarding them really well, most people don't leave. Most people don't do that because you're looking after them. So when you are consistently marketing and you do have a business that's consistently making money, then nobody has that fear, because they can't go out and make as much money as they're making, working for you in most cases, because they should be rewarded well. If we're making money, why wouldn't we pay our staff well?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I guess I have trouble finding like a writer. I have trouble finding a graphic designer remotely, like all over the US. So like, where are people finding employees for this? Like, is this something they post on Indeed? Are they going, how are they finding people? Referrals?
Usually, a lot of the times it's a past client.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the times, hiring somebody that's been through the experience and understands the experience and is already a raving fan, that has the talent that you need. And you need to hire personality. So you always hire personality and train skill. So you can train somebody to do almost anything if they have the right personality. So you would always look for personality. You would always, when you're interviewing somebody, ask them behavioral type questions that reveal all of those traits that you're looking for. So then that way that you're hiring the right person for that role. For a retoucher, you don't want to be hiring anybody that loves outdoor sports and loves team sports and is an extrovert, because they're going to be sitting behind a computer the whole time, and they're not going to love what they do because they want to be out and about and meeting and greeting people. Whereas your salespeople, you do want that extrovert. You do want that person that wants to be part of a team and loves all those extra things to do. And it also helps you learn how to manage them if you understand what type of personality they are. So, sometimes letting somebody go off and, buy the milk rather than you picking it up is that break that they need that makes them a lot more productive. So just understanding their behaviors, understanding what's important to them really, really helps. And a lot of the times the rewards, it's more important for them to receive rewards that are not monetary rewards. So some of the studios that I train, they may plan, if they reach a certain target 3 months in a row, then they'll take them I've got one studio that takes their, no, actually two or three now, that take their team overseas. And it's a holiday thing that they, if they hit target, then they go overseas. And, they tend to go overseas every month because they hit target. It's 3 months in a row, but then, if they hit it 3 months in a row, then in month 4, they hit it again, then they're away again in month 5 if they hit it again. Like, it all sort of compounds. So,
so
it's fun.
I guess to take almost like a one step back and up, I guess my question would be like, for someone listening and they're just like, well, that sounds amazing, but I don't have an amazing studio. And by the way, I'm going to also preface by saying I've watched a lot of these like studio tours you've done of like King and Fields, of Folk Studio. Like, these places are amazing. Literally, they look like a showroom floor for like a designer or an interior. Like, they're amazing.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
Like, it's a photography studio. It should be gorgeous, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I agree. So I guess, like some of these topics is like, number one, does this system building, when does it start? Does it start only when you have a studio? Does it start when someone's still shooting in their garage, in their basement? And then how does someone know when they're ready to get a studio?
Well, almost everybody I start working with doesn't have a studio. It's rare. So most people are working out of home, out of their garage, out of the trunk of their car, and we just teach them the system. So it's more about consistency, building those alliances, getting the marketing in place, then getting the systems in place so that when the clients are coming through, we're converting them into quality clients. My belief is that great clients are made, not found. So we make great clients, and then we bring them through an experience whereby we help people discover what's important to them about their relationships and what matters to them. So then that way, when we photograph that part of them, then they just want to buy photos. It's about creating photographs that people genuinely want to buy, would love to surround themselves with in their home. So then it just makes it easy. You don't even have to sell, really. So once that system is in place and you've proven that you can repeatedly do it, and there's money in the bank, which doesn't take long to build that once you've got the system in place, then it's okay for you to, if you want to, sign a lease or, buy a bigger car because you want, you're happy to run your business out of your car, and you'd prefer to offer clients a service whereby you go to them and you're designing artwork in their homes and you're displaying it in their homes for them at the end of it. So each person's different. Not everybody wants a big studio, or not everybody wants a premises. Some people want to buy a building and then fit it out and create their studios in it. Others will rent. But I've done lots of transformations in people, using segments of people's homes. So maybe a basement. I've done quite a few basement conversions where we've converted a basement into a studio and design consultation room, and garages. They work as well. And then some people have built an addition to their home that becomes the studio. So sometimes it's in an office block. It just depends on what's available. Or, lately we've got a few in is it industrial parks? Is that what you call them? Oh,
like an industrial park area.
Parks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then it's more of a factory type scenario where big space, cheap rent because it's in the middle of nowhere pretty much. And then we just divide it up and create the space. But it's got to start with the system. You've got to prove first that you can make the money. You've got to prove that you can bring the marketing and create quality clients, have the quality product for them to buy, create photographs that people want to buy. So it's all client focused, and about creating raving fans. So then that way those people are then referring you more people like them, and then everything sort of automates and just compounds and runs, because the clients love what you're doing for them and they want to share you with their friends and family. And sometimes they'll bring you into their business because they kind of figure that this could be a great reward for their clients, because they've had such a great experience. They kind of figure, well, I'm looking for something to reward my clients with. These days, especially retail is struggling. They need to somehow build loyalty with their clients, and what we do is perfect for that, if we give people a meaningful transformational experience.
That does actually sound amazing. And it's funny because I used to have a really good friend that was the marketing manager at Saks Fifth Avenue. And she was always trying to create experiences for the clients. Like, it was basically clients that spent over $100,000 with the store. They would get special invitations. They'd go to these boutique experiences. And just thinking about it, it's like, people like that they're dying to find like alliances, or they're dying to find people to provide that for their clients. So, and I know
also lots of holiday planners as well, like that are renting out luxury homes. With that home, they have lots of experiences that go with the home. So being part of that package helps as well. So,
oh wow! So
we've had a few of those as well.
Wow. So, I mean, and that I guess that in a sense, like, of course that's marketing, and it's a different type, right? Because it's different from what people think. It's like, hey, I'm going to go put something out there. Hopefully people come get me or find out and love me. And I know a lot of people have a wall or resistance where they're like, it feels salesy to go ask people to partner with them, or it feels salesy to get alliances. Like, how do they break out of that and make that approach to offer someone that they might think, wow, these people are out of my league. This is an extremely luxurious home. They would never refer their clients to me. Like, what's the first step to like building that bridge?
I think the first thing that has to happen is you have to provide an incredible client experience, because everything grows from that. So really, really focusing on understanding what matters to a client, really understanding how to communicate with people to make them feel comfortable and build instant trust, understand how to build rapport with people, and like I think the biggest mistake photographer, when I'm training to break habits, the biggest habit we have to break is we need to stop talking about ourselves, and we have to start asking questions about our clients, because this is their experience and not our experience. So the better we get at asking quality questions of our clients, asking a mother, what is unique about her child? What does he bring to the world? And, even if they have 3 children, if you were to just focus on one, that one child, because he deserves to be celebrated as for who he is, what is unique about that child? What is he, what do you see in him that nobody else sees? Because if I can photograph that for you, that part of him that only you see and you understand, then that's what we're going to bring to life. So really what we're doing is increasing our clients' awareness and sensitivity to those things that are important to them. And what we're trying to do is create the best version of that family, the best version of that couple that we possibly can before we photograph them. When you do that, then the clients just want to buy from you. You don't have to sell, really, because we've created something magical for them that they just want to buy. And when we do that, they then refer us more people, and it all snowballs from there. That's when you become delicious as a brand to your clients and to other brands, because of the experience. So it has to start with the experience. Tricky marketing schemes, they bring people in, but they're never going to bring the same caliber of person in as when you truly, truly believe in your clients, truly see that in every single person there is a hidden gem. And, these days, so many people are in relationships but are really lonely. So many people are looking for more in themselves. They wake up every morning, look in the mirror and think, well, what happened? Like, who am I? And they tend to lose part of themselves over time. So just helping people rediscover that as part of what we do in our process. I don't know, it's almost like taking a rough diamond and polishing it, and we hand it back to those people. We're taking these people and we're just, making them brilliant again. And then they go back to their families because of the experience that we've given them as completely different people, because they're now receiving each other differently because of the questions we ask, because of the awareness that we've created for them. And I'm rambling, so I better get it back to you.
No, and it's funny because, from when we started, someone listening might say, well, Steve was trying to say that you needed processes and you need to make basically a conveyor belt. It's going to be cookie cutter experience for everyone, but you're creating, and I've heard this, it's almost like bespoke equals be broke. And that means that, like, if you keep doing ultra custom experiences, marketing and, sales conversations, and every time it's different, and again, it's not going to be processed and it's not going to be transferable to anybody, but you're going to spend a lot of time like reworking and reinventing the wheel, where what you're describing is like, that tree, that diagram, but then at the same time, everyone feels like it's custom, because it is, because you're having specific connections with each person and you're learning about them and they go through their journey. And while it's not bespoke on the side of the studio where they're, having to like tailor every experience, it feels like it is to the person.
It totally does. I think people mistake systems for being, mechanical cookie cutter, but the systems are pretty much understanding the psychology behind different types of personalities and being able to adapt to different personality types, understanding how an average person reacts. Where do they tend to look when they're making decisions? Where do they tend to, when they're imagining what something will look like on their wall, where would they tend to be looking in that room, and then placing product according to what the average person, the average person, there's such a thing as normal, the average person, where they tend to look, where they tend to draw their information from. Most of what I teach is helping people. Realistically, I'm just teaching people to be normal human beings in front of a client rather than something mechanical that's trying to make something up all the time. People come to my workshops and it's like, I just want you to be human. Like, all I'm teaching you to do is to be human. How would you behave if you were meeting a friend? How would you want to be treated if you were meeting a friend? What would you say to that person when you're meeting somebody for the first time? A friend's introduced you to a brand new person. What is the first thing that would come out of your mouth? And we just, there's a system, but the system's all about how to be human. And how to bring the humanity back into what we do.
So these client experiences and, getting these clients, I know you mentioned something earlier where you said, that client's created, not, found. Where, I guess to start, like if someone says like, hey, I need clients, I feel like my experience and my work is good, but I just need to get in front of them. Like, where are they going to create those clients? Where have you seen has brought in, the most bang for effort, and, where are the studios you're working with? Where are they starting?
Oh God, that's a big question. Okay. That's a big question. There are three basic ways to grow a business, and we are told, the three ways are to get more clients, which we've been sold to as an industry as the only way to grow a business. The second way is to get your clients to use you more often. And that is the easiest way to grow a business and the most cost-effective way. And because you've already educated those clients, it is the easiest way. It's the one way that increases your average sale as well, which is the third way to grow a business, is to increase your average sale. So normally when I bring clients on board, the easiest way for them to, to start generating more funds is to reach out and remarket to their better clients that they've already got. Are you doing birthday mail? Christmas is around the corner. What does your Christmas campaign look like? That should be ready to be hit, rolled out in November. What about your Valentine's Day promotion? What's happening there? What networking groups are you visiting? What's happening in those networking groups? The networking groups are to get, new clients. But when you're marketing for Christmas, you're marketing for Valentine's Day, you're tapping into your current client. And in most cases, then that gives them the opportunity to refer you more people just like them.
And how are people bringing back repeat clients? I mean, is this something like, are they just sending off an email, a text message, or are they like picking up the phone?
Well, usually if it's a campaign, they'll send out a gift certificate with the letter and then, possibly picking up the phone. I put a challenge out at the beginning of this week to my group and said to them, look, this week, let's just think of a client that, really touched you, that you really did feel a connection with, and just call them and say, hey, it's been 6 months, it's been a year. I've been thinking about you, couldn't help but call you. What have been the highlights for the past year? And there's been people, posting, and I can send you some of the posts. There are people that are booking 2-3 people a day. We don't even have to ask for the booking, because once we start asking clients about what have been their highlights for the year, and they start talking about that, they start talking about their family, we start asking questions about what that means to them, and they'll say, oh my God, we need to come and have another shoot done. And the clients pretty much bring up wanting to come back purely because we've reached out for them. I travel a lot, and I make it a mission to talk to as many people as I can. And I've normally, I will normally have, 1 or 2 people crying in the lounge waiting for the plane. And, they finally turn around and say, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, I train photographers, and they're like, oh my God, no wonder, I've never spoken to anybody like this before. You've been incredible to talk to you. You've got to come and take our photos. So it's as simple as caring. It's as simple as seeing somebody. When people say to me, I've got no clients, well, I said, just open the door, walk outside, and, talk to people. And the people that literally do that, I've got, 3 or 4 people that consistently will take their kids to the park and just talk to other parents, and they book, 2 or 3 people, a week just by taking their kids to the park. There's clients everywhere. Most people are dying for somebody to see them. Most people are lonely, and they just want someone to see them and somebody to see something good in them. And when we do that, there's an abundance of clients, because everybody wants to be celebrated. Everybody needs this.
So if someone tells you, like, Steve, like, that gives me anxiety, like I can't muster to go talk to a stranger or compliment anyone. Like, what's,
so talk to the people you know. Talk to the people you know. Talk to the clients you've already served. And, most people when you do this process properly, most people will book again. Are you doing birthday mail? And sending out some sort of an offer? Like, are you So, when they say they have anxiety, there's got to be a point when they have to start talking to someone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're in the business of people. So if you're a portrait photographer and you're taking photographs of people, then, we have to love people. We have to celebrate people. We have to welcome people. We have to look for that hidden treasure inside of everybody. As photographers, we have to be like the archaeologists of emotion, because so many people have buried their emotions so far deep inside them that they don't feel them anymore. So for us to then talk to somebody and find out what's important to them, find out what moves them emotionally, why do they love this person? Why is this person important to them? What does what does it mean for them to have this child? Like, you're pregnant, great. So, what is important to you about this child? What do you wish for them? What is going to make him the perfect dad? What's going to make her the perfect mum? So we're asking both sides. But we're photographing people. We have to face them at some point. And it's so much easier on the phone than facing somebody face to face.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I might be a little bit of a millennial because I feel very passionate about this online. I know it's a little bit more disconnected, but I think online now, it's made it so you can even reach out and connect with even more people much faster. So is there
a lot more superficial? That's the only problem. It tends to be a lot more superficial. You can't be without the conversation, and I suppose you can have conversation online, but you can't hear the tone. So you've got to listen for what people mean, and tonality constitutes 38% of all communication. So listening to somebody's tone and what they mean is really important. So, there's a certain point where you need to get people off social media, off email, off texting as quickly as possible, because you're missing out on a huge chunk of that communication that's necessary for them to truly open up and for them to discover what is important to them. So then you can give them photographs that for them is meaningful and is life-changing.
For sure. And, in the high rollers, we are adamant, people got to get people on the phone. And I can't tell you how many times there's people that are just no, I don't want to be on the phone. I just want to email people and hopefully they'll just pay my invoices. You go into a studio and, they want your help and they tell you they don't want to be on the phone. What's your reaction to that?
We hire somebody that's great at it. If it's giving you anxiety and you suck really bad at it, then you're not allowed near the phone. We just have to hire someone. Because what is it costing you not to have somebody that loves being on the phone? Normally 5 to 10 clients a week. How much is that worth to you? And I don't know what averages, the people in your group are getting, but, for my clients, that's 15, 20, sometimes $30,000 a week.
Wow. So, I'd hate to have this conversation and not talk about average sale. So for a lot of people, we've been talking about creating your ideal client. Does that stop at the booking phase, or does that stop with the whole experience, getting them to the point of sale? Because time and time again, I see it in Facebook groups, I see it in our email responses. People will write us and say, well, they said this one thing during the sales process, and I want to know the one word I would have said or the one sentence to have tripled my sale. What is that magic key? So how are they getting to those ridiculous numbers that you just said, right? 15. And I've seen some posts where wedding photographers are talking about their $18,000 sales and up. So where is that? And is there a line that just triples sales?
It's building a relationship with somebody, and it's about building trust, and for you to really truly understand what's important to those people and deliver on that. It can't be done with a sales line. these clients, even before you've taken a photo, have imagined what you're going to do for them because of the conversations that we have with them. So because of those conversations, they're seeing their child with that look of pride on their face as they finish creating this block, their Lego. And they're telling you what that means to them to be the first person that child looks towards with that look of pride. And they're describing to you every stage of, him completing that and looking up at them and what that means for them. They're seeing that on their wall. You've quoted them however much you believe whatever product, find out about their decor, find out about where it's going to be displayed in their home. And then, you might be quoting them $1,500, $1,200, whatever that is for whatever product you're going to sell them. And so in their mind, they've seen it on their wall already. They're falling in love with it because that's what they truly want. And, they've got 2 or 3 weeks now to think about, okay, this is going to cost me this much money. By the time they come in, it's almost like at the supermarket. You put things in the shopping cart. When you get to the register, you sort of know how much it's going to be. Like there's no surprises because people are fully aware, even before they've come in for the shoot, that something's going to cost them a certain amount of money. So it's all done, over time. I mean, those wedding photographers, it's because they're getting those numbers, that they're getting them because they're creating those relationships with those clients. They're calling the parents. They're finding out, my motto is we're not just photographing a bride. We're not just photographing a groom. We're photographing somebody's son. We're photographing somebody's daughter. And we need to find out who this person is as a daughter to their mother. Who is she as a daughter to their father? Because that's a completely different relationship. And for him to have that voice and for him to describe who she is will change the way you see that person and will change the way you will photograph that person in a way that those photographs become so much more meaningful to that couple, to those parents, and to the bride, obviously. And we do the same with the groom. Who is he as your son? How has this woman elevated him? What has she brought out in him that nobody else has been able to bring out in him? Who is he as your son? What are those qualities that he brings to the world that you see in him? Because I want to see that. I need to see him through your eyes. And I think that once we do that, the photographs become saturated with what people honestly, truly love about that person, which then makes them incredibly valuable. Yes, we need great composition. Yes, we need great lighting. Yes, we need great, posing. But that third element, that heart, that soul to a person, that's what people spend money on.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I feel like I've taken so much from you, and, people listening have it just opens up a lot of potential and a lot of blind spots that I feel like even I've had, or, for the listeners. I really appreciate
my daughters are teenagers now, and, boyfriends and whatever. But, for a photographer to call me and ask me about my daughter, what she means to me, what do I see in her, that would be incredible. Would I not buy from you because you've come and asked me that about my daughter, even though it's, her wedding? So, a lot of the photographers that I'm training are not only selling albums and designing albums to the bride and groom, but the parents are buying albums because they want a custom designed album because of the conversations that we've had of what's meaningful to them. The mother of the bride isn't that interested in getting ready photos of the groom. She wants to fill her album with photographs that are relevant to her. She's got people that she's talked to us about as their photographer, of who are important to them and why they're important to her. People that maybe she hasn't seen for a really long time, but are still really important to her. And if we've taken the time over time to call her, find out what's important to her, talk to the dad, what has he got to say to his daughter? Like, what is his message that he wants to say? When you hear these dads, with their speeches and some of the speeches that they create, it just tears your heart out. What if that happened a year before? Because those brides half the time look shocked that he's even felt this way because he's never said it before. What if we gave them a whole year of that before the wedding, and she knew that, and they were able to build this even stronger relationship leading up to the wedding? Imagine what the speech would look like or sound like, at the wedding once all of that was said a year ago, because we started that conversation. We started initiating all of that and got him to express what he truly loves about them. So, a lot of these sales are coming from, albums that are maxing out spines because people genuinely are seeing the soul of what we are doing for them and are genuinely loving what they're seeing, so that it becomes irresistible. And they, we tell them up front, as we're talking to them, that could be an incredible double-page spread, and they know that the album's going to be maxed out, in some cases 2 volumes. The parents, given the option, want to design their own. So in some cases they're selling, 2-3 albums to every wedding.
I'm going to assume that this, in the high rollers with Jennifer and Smith and me, I'm going to assume that this doesn't change much when it comes to like boudoir, right? Does this change a lot when it comes to pets or other portraits? Because I feel, a lot of times we tell ourselves stories of like, well, that's great, Steve, but like, that's a wedding. Weddings are important. Someone's boudoir is just, whatever. So maybe this doesn't apply. And I feel like the reason this works across all these different states, countries.
Totally applies. It's all the same. It's totally all the same. So, even for pet photography, asking somebody find out the dog's name. Let's pretend it's Molly. It's my dog's name. What has Molly brought to your family? What is her personality like? What does she bring to each one of your children? What's the relationship that she has with Olivia? What does she bring out in Olivia that a human can't bring out? So if you watch my daughter Olivia when she's with Molly, just alone time, she's a completely different person. She's a much more likable person, lovable person when she's around Molly. And for me as a father to describe that to you, and for you to capture that part of her that I would love to see more and more of, that's invaluable.
And by the way, I feel like this is something also that doesn't take forever to implement, right? Like, and I feel like when they improve this experience and the connection, they're improving the ultimate product, right? And everyone is always so wrapped around like, how do I market? Like, kind of like you mentioned, like, how do I do my next little gimmick? How do I do my next little, quick fix? No, I know. I'm talking about like, they're always focused on like, how do I do that next thing that'll convince people? But there's just not enough time put into like, how do I improve my craft or product or experience?
I think a lot of people are looking for those quick little phrases or something that they think is the magic bullet, but in actual fact, it's just all about caring enough and asking the sort of questions that add value. So, my motto is add value at every point you can. So, sometimes we know that, a couple need a little bit more time, so we'll put off the shoot, and maybe we'll call up the husband and say, hey, if you were to create a perfect day for Rebecca, what would that look like? He goes, oh, well, I haven't done that for a long time. Yeah, well, I know, but what if you did do it? What if you were to create a perfect day for Rebecca? She opens her eyes. What's the first thing you've got planned for her? And just get him to talk about it, if he was to create a perfect day. And then at some point say, well, how hard would it be for you to do one of those things? When's the next time you could possibly do one of those things? And, bringing couples together before a shoot is what we need to be doing, because if we can photograph the best version of that couple that we possibly can, then we become irresistible and we don't need all that stuff you're talking about, because they're falling in love again. He's done something to go out of his way. And, if we can help people go out of their way for each other again, then that's all people need, really. That's what it's about. And just encouraging them and opening up the possibility of, well, could you possibly not go to the gym one day this week? So then that way, when she does open her eyes, you're actually there. Would that mean something to her? Could you write a note maybe and leave it beside her bed so the moment she opens her eyes, she knows you're thinking about her? Like, how much time does that take for you?
Yeah, those are really great points. And one thing I focus a lot on, digital and, just advertising to basically, I guess I'll simplify it, is I normally tell people that from what you're saying, that experience is the core product. And if you add all these fancy Facebook and Google and you add all these fancy email automations, you're just going to amplify what you have. So if you had a bad product, a bad experience, you're going to find out even faster, and more people are going to find out faster. But if you have a good one and you have, and you care and you provide an amazing experience and, and you have that, then you're just going to accelerate it. You're going to add fuel to the fire. But I feel a lot of times, people don't, like I was saying, they don't focus on the product, and then they just add the fuel, and then everything blows up and they're like, wait, it must have been, it's Facebook's fault my business isn't growing. And it's like,
yeah. Well, the experience has to be right first, because if you're then going to put your clients on, and we do this quite often where, we'll have a client of the month where we, showcase a client and showcase their story. And usually, the people that know them the best are the first ones to comment, the first ones to reach out, the first ones to want to book another session with us, because they've seen the difference that this has created for that relationship, that suddenly, dad's actually taking a couple of hours on a weekend to take his child to the park, and is actually, pushing him on the swing without having his phone in his hand and, doing this, rather than, physically being present for that child. I interview the clients of my clients. So I interview the families that a lot of my clients are photographing, and listening to a 13-year-old tell you that since they've had the photo shoot, it doesn't feel like they're walking into an empty home anymore, because mum and dad pay attention when we come home now. Listening to these kids, they're so wise, they're incredible. And, if we can do that, photography to me is a tool that opens up the doors for us to bring families together and to help people just be better people and give children back their parents and parents back their children. And why not?
Yeah. And that actually reminds me, I have like a memory burned in my mind. When I was starting my photography career, I was photographing a lot of military members, and, I was basically, offering them the session. I was practicing my sales process on the back end, and everyone was saying no to me at first, or people would just kind of look at me and be like, yeah, cool. I was a Special Marines operator, and they're like, sure, we'll do a photo shoot at some point. And they would blow me off. And one day I asked somebody I really respected, him and his wife was a midwife at a hospital. And she told me beforehand, brought them in, telling me about their kids. And she was like, look, my kids, they're not going to be nice to each other. They just are always at each other's throats. They're going to beat each other up. Like, good luck with that. And by the end of it, I had so many photos of these kids like holding hands and like hugging each other and embracing each other, that no kidding, my entire business was basically set just from that midwife telling everyone in the hospital. And I just remember thinking, like, it's not that the photos were amazing or anything. They were at the park and they were competent and well lit. But I think it was that she loved just telling stories of the photos and the kids and of that day. And it was just night and day compared to what she explained to me what the kids were going to be like. And they turned out to be, an amazing experience for all of us. And we went for ice cream afterwards, and they were very surprised at the end of it.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes the biggest difference. I think for a lot of relationships, we stop getting curious. As time goes on, we believe that there's nothing left to discover about that other person. And if we ask the right questions, we just start raising people's curiosity because we're curious. And it's amazing how much people learn about each other, 10, 15 years on. And we spark up a new curiosity. We start up a new discovery process where people actually start going out of their way for each other again. And when we do that, then we start taking photographs that mean something to someone. So I think a lot of people think, people don't value photography anymore. It's not that people don't value photography. The reality is that most people don't value themselves enough to be photographed. And, if we can help people feel more valuable, help people feel as though their relationships are worth photographing, then there's an abundance of clients everywhere. We don't even have to try.
Yeah, and that's a great point about, there's always something more to learn about people. I'd heard Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist, talk about this, and he talks about how, like, even if you have a best friend or a wife that you think there's so much more, and people only reveal enough about themselves to keep you interested. Because if you knew everything about somebody, you'd basically be bored with them, and you wouldn't want to interact with them anymore. And as long as you're willing to ask questions and be curious, they'll always be willing to reveal a little bit more about themselves. And as they grow, it's not like they're just a static person at 20 to 40. They're completely different people. So they have different things to reveal at that time. So it's really interesting to think that you could do that with a client, right? That you can get that deep with them.
Yeah, and you really can. The stories that people have are incredible. And to look at somebody at face value, that's not what we're about. It shouldn't be what we're about. We shouldn't just take somebody and treat them like an object. Understanding somebody's soul, understanding somebody's intention, understanding, a couple's why, and for them to know their why. That's the most important part. Because we're curious about it, they get to learn about it. And when they look at their photographs, it's a completely different experience because they know the story and they're feeling something very different to when they come and approach you originally. They don't really know what to expect. They're definitely not expecting anyone to, pay attention to them. And it just self-propels. People just love it. And why not? We're making people feel better about themselves. So many people are saying to us that, we've made their marriages so much better. That's a byproduct.
It almost sounds like the photographer, like when they're providing this experience or getting this connection, like they almost turn into like a coach of some sort or some sort of like life coach.
So, well, sort of. I mean, it's just about being curious. Rather than when somebody rings you and says, I'm a cancer survivor, rather than going, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I should give you all the prints for free. Ask them, what is the gift that cancer's given you? How has that impacted your life right now? And people have the most incredible stories. And it's almost like that you hear them sigh, they go, oh, because they're just over everybody feeling sorry for them. And in most cases, their life began the day that they found out they were a cancer survivor, and they've lived much more fulfilling lives, much more fulfilling, relationships since then. And it's, for them to be able to explain that without somebody feeling sorry for them. I know it's, a difficult thing for a lot of people to approach, but, the reality is when we've asked people that question, it's been totally positive.
Yeah. Yeah, and and you're right. I mean, for a lot of people, the first thing is to either acknowledge and just kind of bulldoze someone's story and just kind of get to the point. Because it feels like every time someone gets on the phone, it's like the only thing we know to do is just tell them about ourselves. And it seems like you're stopping photographers, you're getting them to like listen and actually listen, not just, head nod and say, well, my studio's so great because of my awards and my years, but they're asking questions. And I feel like in the end, that ends up making the sale or the booking process just a lot easier for them.
It is, because the clients are attracted to you and they just want to book. For boudoir, we would always ring the husbands and find out, what is it about her that is unique? Why is this the woman you decided you wanted to spend the rest of your life with? What was special about her? Take us back to that moment that you knew this was the one. What was happening? Why was that important? What expressions are you loving right now? How is that? How did you know? And, to give that gift to somebody, because a lot of men are vaults. They don't express any of that because we just haven't given ourselves permission to do that. So, to call them and find out about, what they love about that person, you can't help but look at those photos differently. You can't help but photograph that person differently because you know their story and you know more about them. So it just changes. It will change the way you shoot purely because you have heard what this person means to somebody else.
Like I get that.
We had it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you can continue.
No, I was going to go off on another complete tangent.
Yeah. No,
you've got to rein me in. You've got to rein me in.
And that's probably unique to boudoir is, I've seen the horror stories of like people posting in groups and saying, I got a text message from the husband. He's threatening, and they're getting these like nightmare clients. Like, could it have something to do with, just the process where the inquiry was taken in and just the communication, and how do they avoid that? Because I can imagine, it's probably pretty scary to get that, especially if you're a woman photographer and then you have a guy texting you that he's going to come down to your studio and rip out your hard drive or something.
Yeah. Well, we always got them involved as quickly as possible because not only will it triple the sale, but having them involved and having them express what they love the most about this person. And for some women, having him actually for the first time stand up for her, or the first time in a really long time stand up for her and hear what he has to say about her, to have him there during design consultation, standing up for her, letting her know what he loves the most about whatever photo that he's, that they could be deciding on, because he'll pick very differently to her. A lot of the women have found very, very empowering because they needed that person to stand up for them, and they needed to hear that he cared enough to make the time to do that for her. So, and even, understanding who this woman is as somebody's best friend sometimes is really, really important too. So, that was another angle that we would take in boudoir. Sometimes, you don't have access to the husband. So who are you as somebody's best friend? And finding out from that person.
Gotcha.
What are the qualities that she brings? Why is she your best friend? Who is she as a best friend? If there were 3 words that described what is unique about this person to you, what would they be? And then, this is where the system comes in, and you filter all that down. But the system's all about becoming curious and teaching people what we would do normally if we were genuinely interested with people, understanding different personality types and adapting to each personality type. So then we don't have horror clients, because in most cases, those horror clients tend to be the opposite personality type to us, and we just don't know how to deal with them. So just understanding, okay, I've got an eagle coming in. Now I need to do this, as opposed to I'm dealing with a dove who is that all-caring person, very different to an eagle. So, just adapting what you do tends to avoid all of that.
So I know we could talk for hours on this, and like that topic is very interesting. If somebody wanted to learn more, where could they find out more about you?
SteveSaporitoEducation.com. I've got an online platform. There's lots of online videos that cover everything that we've talked about pretty much and map it all out for you. There's a platinum membership, which, gets you downloads and all sorts of things. Or you can buy individual courses individually. It's up to anyone else. And I run workshops in the US and in the UK. So there's workshops as well. But the online is very accessible. So SteveSaporitoEducation.com.
Awesome. And I'll put that in the notes for this as well. Well, Steve, I really appreciate it. I'm going to see you at PPA. So hopefully anyone else is going as well. We'll all link up.
I'm speaking again. They've asked me back. I can't believe it. So excited.
Do you already know the topic?
Yes, but I haven't worked on it yet. So I need to start working on that now. But it's very much in line with what we were talking about.
Awesome.
In creating quality clients. So it'll be fun. I loved it last year. So I was so excited when they asked me back. I couldn't believe it, actually. I'm like, oh God, 2 years in a row. That's great.
Again, I thought your talk was one of the best ones, and that's why we're here.
Oh, so. Wow. Thank you. That's awesome.
I really appreciate it, Steve. Thank you so much for being with us.
No worries. Thank you.